pretty much gotten hitting the ground running with just getting recruiting going. How do you think that the process has gone so far? Obviously, you got Gervais to stay, HOL to stay. Kind of what's the plan next going forward?
Yeah, it was definitely an unbelievable weekend. I mean, just experiencing a scrimmage when there's, I don't know what the official attendance was, but a lot more than I've seen at Giant Stadium for games. Just special. The commitment from the fan base, the energy they bring, the passion is second to none. It's incredible to see. To bring a kid on campus here, you don't really have to speak that much. You just let everything speak for itself, and certainly that makes our job a lot easier when you have the commitment not only from the fan base, but clearly this university and athletic department where they've separated themselves as having the best facilities in the country. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind since we walked in the doors here. I feel like we haven't really rested too much, and we won't till May when we have a roster that we feel really good about going into next season, but definitely excited about getting off to a really good start.
When you're hosting kids, I mean, obviously this is all kind of new to you. How do you kind of balance this is what we have while also taking it in for yourself and just kind of experience your first spring game, all that stuff?
Well, this past weekend I definitely took it in myself. It's hard not to. I had my wife there, my little son, 5 months old. Someday he'll realize that he went to his first football game at the University of Nebraska, although it is a little sad because I was hoping his first football game would be seeing the Giants play, but we'll take Nebraska for right now. But yeah, I mean, just taking it all in. To be honest, I never even – me and Fred's first time going to Pinnacle Bank Arena was on this visit. We haven't even gone there yet. So just taking that all in was unbelievable. What a arena. Can't wait to see what it's like all filled up, but what a beautiful place.
It's been the reception. I mean, obviously this is kind of a complete overhaul of the program.
Yeah.
I mean, how are recruits kind of embracing your sales pitch of Nebraska? I mean, I know it's early, but so far, what's kind of been the response?
It's been awesome. I mean, certainly the reception's been positive. Clearly a lot of interest. Not a lot of people immediately reply no, that we're not interested. I think they're giving us all a shot. It's somewhat easy to sell a coach like Fred Holberg. The challenge here that I see right off the bat is you have to build their trust to get them to come on campus. Very similar to when we were at Iowa State, where you have to build that trust. It's a barrier that you have to get over when you hear Nebraska. And once they touch down here, they realize how beautiful it is, how amazing the people are, how clearly beautiful the facilities are, and literally everything's set up for their success here. I don't know if there's a better setup to be in the entire country for a student athlete than what they have going on here.
Have you Sorry, do you think that's more about like the weather and stereotypes of the Midwest region, or more about just Nebraska specifically as a program?
Being an East Coaster for the majority of my life, when you hear Iowa, Nebraska, the first thing that gets into your mind, and not that I think this, but like middle of nowhere, and that's a barrier you just have to get over. I mean, listen, I never thought that I would move back to New York and actually miss Iowa, and I wholeheartedly did. I mean, it's a special place to live in the country. The people are what make it. It doesn't matter how big the buildings are, what the weather's like. The people make everything. That's always been my biggest pitch is, whether it's, not having the best facilities at maybe some prior schools. The people are what make the experience a positive one for the players that you try and recruit. So the people here are absolutely phenomenal. Just the passion and energy. Someone that's a huge sports fan myself, you appreciate the fact that they have that same energy about themselves. So I love that about them.
Have you noticed any difference between recruiting here and recruiting at Iowa State? I know it's still a bit.
What the difference is when now you're able to sell Fred Holberg, former head coach. That is a huge selling point. I told Fred, just the growth of him as a coach is something that's a lot easier to sell. That experience, I don't think there's anybody in college basketball that has the wealth of experience from being a player to front office to head coach, I don't think there's one in college basketball. To have that in your back pocket as something to hit home with all these kids and parents is huge benefit for what we're trying to do.
What about just the recruiting landscape? Has it changed? I know it's only been a few years, but do you notice any big changes?
Yeah, what's changed is that everyone does transfers now. That's what's changed. I feel like when we started, we had our pick of the group. Now every school in the country is at least making the phone call in for a kid. So that's changed. But listen, it's always a challenge, and the one thing that always remains constant is where you need an advantage is when a kid comes to campus, there needs to be a wow factor, and we have that here, not only from facilities, but also selling Fred Holberg.
Real generally speaking, kind of what's the plan for the 19 class? You got 4, maybe 5 spots to fill here. Are there specific areas of needs that are higher priorities than others?
Get some ballers in here, that's for sure. Get some athletes fit the way we want to play. I feel really good on today, April 15th, where we're at and making progress with getting kids that can help us win. Of course, what we're inheriting is somewhat a blank canvas, and it might not work perfect, but we certainly are going to put together the best team possible to where we can go out and compete. And that's the one thing I think Fred might have pointed that out in our first year at Iowa State was such a significant year for us because we laid our foundation on how we wanted to play and what our philosophy would be recruiting wise. And being 500 that year at least gave us the opportunity that we knew we can make that jump. Not to say that our goal is to finish 500 by any means, but the goal is to make sure we make our mark where people know what the path is going to look like for us to get this place to the top of the conference.
Is there some, I don't want to say, is there some anticipation, but is there a sense of, I want to get these guys in the gym, or we want to get these guys in the gym and start playing and start showing them what it's going to look like a little bit?
No doubt about that. We just want June 10th to come as fast as possible when we could have whatever team it may be on campus all together where we can get to work with them. There's a lot of time between now and then, and that's great because we do need the time. But we're really excited about having these guys here. They'll be here for the entire summer, June and July, both summer sessions, and then we go to Italy August 3rd through the 13th. So to have that experience is going to be a huge positive for us, just to be able to play 4 games there against competition, just see what we have.
With the transfer market being as kind of exploding over the last couple of years like it has, there's a bunch of options out there. What's the first thing that you want to see when you look at a kid where you can try to kind of narrow down the list of guys that you want to go after?
Yeah, first things first is that clearly they have to fit. One thing that I've always prided myself on is they better be athletic. We want to have length. We want to have athleticism. All the teams that I've been a part of, we've typically had, at the bare minimum, 4 guys on the court that were some of the best athletes on the floor out of the 10 that were playing. That's first and foremost. Shot-making ability is huge. You got to be able to stretch the floor. Having 5 guys on the floor that can shoot, make threes is something that we're certainly going to focus on. When you get this late, you can't really be picky. You might not have the best shooting team that we want to have if we had time to build, but we're certainly going to get close to that. Of course, just relationships and what we're trying to accomplish. You got to work the people that trust you, and that's always really the first door that opens when you talk about any kid, let alone a transfer.
I know you've talked about this before, but just the relationship you and Fred have with each other.
Yeah.
How does that kind of work when you're recruiting guys, when you're trying to build this thing?
You know what? It's when we met with Gervais that, I don't know, what was that, the first full day that we were here, the one thing that drew Gervais and his face lit up was the loyalty that Fred showed towards me on bringing me back with him. I thought that was really cool. Listen, it's hard for me to call him coach because he's my boy. I call him Fred. It's so I'm very grateful that you get to work with someone that you really like and you consider a friend, and his family are friends. So I don't take that for granted. at any time. So to be on this journey with them, of course, is always an honor because you are going to battle with people that you want to take a bullet for. So when you're selling this place, it's extremely easy. It doesn't take any effort whatsoever to sell Fred and who he is as a person and as a coach. And clearly his accolades speak for himself. So that's icing on the cake.
Why do you think you guys have been able to hit it off and get along the way?
The yin and the yang. I'm completely opposite. I'm the brash, going to tell you how it is type of person that maybe he wants to say it, but he never will because he's Fred Holberg and he's like the nicest human being in the world. But then you have me that comes along that's going to tell you exactly what it is, and we've certainly vibed really well on that part. But clearly what got me to this point is my work ethic and being just being the hardest working person in the room, and that's always drawn me to him because that's who he is as a person. He's had to grind his way to where he's at in his life, whether it's a player, GM, or coach, and so we have an instant connection with that. And it's a very fun relationship. It's almost like we're brothers. We yell and scream at each other, and we get it off our chest and move on to the next thing to yell and scream at each other for.
You mentioned Gervais. How important of a piece was that to get him to reaffirm that commitment?
Yeah, absolutely huge. I mean, clearly you got to give all the credit to the previous staff and Coach Miles. They're the ones that got him committed to this school. So it also speaks the volume of Gervais and the people and his family to allow us the opportunity to try and get him to stay committed. He didn't have to. You see it all across the country. A lot of kids don't. He did, and that speaks to his passion and love that he has for this university and program. And we're glad that we can continue on with his commitment and make him a focal point of what we're trying to do and build here.
Have you gotten the chance to look much at what you guys have on the roster right now? Have you had the time to do that?
Yeah, I mean, clearly when you're trying to build an entire roster, you have to know what you have first. I mean, there's still question marks that we're evaluating as a whole when it comes to the roster. I feel like it's Groundhog Day for me every day because literally I feel like that's what I did at St. John's, that's what I did at Iowa State, so it's just back to what I know works in building something from the ground up. When I got to St. John's, we inherited 3 players that averaged 1.7 points per game combined. We got 9 commitments from June to August, and some of them really, really good players that were huge for our success there. So it's something that I'm used to. But in terms of dog years, I'm very old in this business just because of the beatings I've took up with trying to, build things like this. But yeah, of course you have to establish what you have first and foremost when you're looking to build.
What do you feel like you have? Do you feel like the cupboard is dry? Where do you feel like you guys are right now?
It's a great question. I think you have some promise, but I think there's so many question marks. Of course, you have to respect the fact that Isaiah Roby's going through what he's going through. Everything that these kids work for is the moment he's going through, and we certainly want him to and fully support him going on this journey to see if this is an opportunity he takes now or returns. Really, you have to wait and see because that's a significant piece that you're could be part of our team next year. So Deshawne Burke, who I know really well, I recruited him at St. John's. I did an in-home visit with him. Love him. Actually, when I knew I was coming here, I had reached out to him and called him. He had absolutely no idea what was going on because he was dealing with some family issues back home, and he was ecstatic because me and him really hit it off when he was transferring from his previous school. I love him. The competitiveness that he brings to the table is exactly what you need to me in this conference, and the toughness where he's from exudes nothing but toughness. I know Coach is going to certainly work really hard to fine-tune his offensive side, but really excited about having him. And then the few guys that are coming in next year, clearly they're going to play a significant role into what we're trying to do. But yeah, I mean, just sitting back and evaluating to see what we have and, it's exciting when you have the ability to add pieces, but then also have good pieces coming back.
When you guys took over at Iowa State, you got a lot of traditional transfers, and they sat out that first year, and you just kind of got through year one.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate a similar formula this time around, where you just kind of might not necessarily get immediate impact players, but stockpile for the future?
Yeah, certainly one thing I've always done every year I've been in college basketball, at the bare minimum, have always taken 2 sit-out transfers. It balances out the roster really well. You're not going to make more than 9 to 10 players happy, so 10 eligible players is always something that you really want to try and lock in on. It's just extremely difficult. I mean, you guys see the landscape of college basketball. I mean, kids are starting and playing significant minutes and still transferring. So that's always been what I've done. It's also important when you take a sit-out transfer that they're not going on that journey by themselves during the sit-out year, because it is a very lonely one. And to have multiple guys sitting out that can be there with each other definitely, to me, has shown a lot of promise and upside to when they have somebody with them.
From a recruiting point of view, I mean, when you were at Iowa State, I mean, the transfer thing was kind of just getting going. I mean, how different are your options of guys you can go after now versus then, or does it make your job more difficult to do it that way?
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
My phone doesn't stop blowing up with like 15 different names every day. One thing that So what I've done is you try and be as organized as possible, even though it's really hard. You just lock in on the guys that you, know that you can get. So many times in recruiting, people waste their time and consume all their energy on things that you have no chance of getting. One thing I pride myself on, I stay in my lane, I know what I can get, and that's usually good enough. And that's the same thing with transfers, is you try and find the guys that can check the boxes on the important things you're looking for, and there's just so many of them. Like when somebody says they don't deal with transfers, it's like neglecting free agency in NBA. You're not building your entire roster off of the draft, and if you do, you better get really lucky. So we're certainly not going to neglect it. It'll be a huge part of what we're trying to do here. As long as I'm working here, we definitely will.
How much are you kind of leaning on your past work, though? Because, I mean, like with Deshawne, for example, I mean, you had the relationship prior. I'm sure there's other guys that are the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, always falling back on the past relationships that you have. Certainly my ears are always to the ground 365 days out of the year with these transfers, and you try and work ahead where, you put yourself in a position when these kids actually do transfer that you have a shot, and there's clearly plenty of rules that you have to follow when doing it, and when you have relationships with high school coaches and AAU coaches, it allows you the opportunity to hopefully get ahead. So those relationships are absolutely huge.
Just generally speaking, with the transfer market, how different it is in terms of waivers to get immediately eligible? It seems like that's far more common than it used to be, and is that something you guys might explore?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, listen, we're at a point we're going to explore literally and flip over every rock. Not one of them is going to go unturned. We have to explore every angle that can give us an advantage to have the best team next year. So waivers are going to be a huge part of that. I mean, to answer your question, I have no idea. I mean, it would be great maybe if you called the NCAA and you can tell me what they say about the waiver process. I've been successful at getting waivers, and then I've also gotten plenty declined. I think each individual situation warrants different interest to the NCAA, where they'll approve it or not approve it.
Do you think it's easier to get them now?
Well, last year certainly seemed like it was. I think a high percentage of transfers that submitted waivers got them. We were a beneficiary of that at St. John's, so certainly we'll hopefully be the beneficiary here as well.
Having Doc and Bobby on staff, does that give you we got you and Fred a little bit more level of comfort, just guys you know a little bit?
I'll tell you what it definitely does is when things maybe aren't going well, when you have Doc Sadler on your staff, you're going to put things in perspective fast and laugh your ass off. That's for sure. Having Doc is awesome. I mean, he's as good of a person as I've ever come across, not only in basketball, just in life. I mean, we got really close when we were at Iowa State. My wife used to cook him a nice home-cooked meal, and we needed to have Diet Mountain Dew, no water. The only water Doc would drink is the ice cubes, and he made that very well known. I think Doc told me one time he went like 45 straight days without drinking water. So that's an impressive feat in itself. So yeah, listen, and then Bobby Lutz, getting a chance to work with him, the familiarity that Fred's created is certainly going to give us an advantage. We don't have to sit there and really learn about each other. It's been seamless. Working with them for somebody young like myself is clearly you're grateful for, being able to learn such a wealth of knowledge from both of them, being former head coaches and having so much success. I mean, for a kid like me, for them to even listen to one word I have to say is hilarious. But yeah, just awesome being around these guys.
Hey, how did you kind of become the recruiting guy?
I have no idea. I mean, listen, my first recruit ever was Royce White, and from there, I don't know if it's gone downhill or uphill. Not sure. Either way, you can kind of say. But you know what? I've always been fortunate enough in every stage of my life growing up. I was always a very social person and always very upfront and honest, and I'm able to build people's trust really fast. And because of that, it's allowed me the opportunity to build relationships that's the most important thing when you're recruiting. You have to have relationships, and been fortunate enough to come across great people that have trusted me and allowed me to further my career the way it has. So yeah, I mean,
were you like class president in high school or something? Or?
You know, I actually ran for class president, and I got beat out. And I thought I had it done, and I didn't. That hurt. You brought up a bad memory.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just always just one of those people that in college I worked camps all across the country that allowed me to network and meet great people, which is how I met somebody that knew Rob Babcock, who was the assistant GM with the T-Wolves, that allowed me the opportunity with them. So right place at the right time, and then really surrounding myself around some good people. So I've been fortunate enough to work with them.
A lot of the coaches have kind of said that Fred's system works, you just got to get the players. Do you feel pressure when you hear that? Like, what's kind of...
You know what? I mean, the pressure has always been there for me, because when you're not a former player, your last name doesn't point towards, like, basketball royalty. I have this paranoia about me that I can't be outworked because they'll just find somebody else. So the pressure is going to be there. It doesn't matter. I mean, me and my wife, we go on vacation, and, you know, I can't go to sleep at night because I'm thinking about some kid that I'm recruiting, or I'm on the phone for a couple hours a day, and regardless of where we're at in the world. So that's never going to leave me. I don't know how long I'll last because of that, but certainly, yeah, I mean, that paranoia is always going to be with me to do a really good job. The pressure is not going to matter because I've done it. So that's the good thing, and the experience is there, building stuff from the bottom up and being successful at it. So I'm just excited because this place really, really allows you to me, have an easy job.
Do you feel like, I mean, you've been on the road for the last couple weeks. Has recruiting in Nebraska been as easy as you've kind of, I mean, maybe not easy, but, you know, have you found other things to sell other than the facilities, and, like, has it gone? You know
what you're selling, ultimately the facilities are amazing, but you're selling the people. That's why transfers, because kids out of high school pick the wrong place because they get caught up in the things that really don't matter. The things that matter are trusting the people that you're going to go to school with, that they're going to get you from point A to point B as seamless and as quick as possible. And that's what we have here. We have ridiculous people around this program that are easy to sell. When they get to campus, of course, you could just walk them around here and not say a word, and it sells itself. But, you know, certainly the difficulty is going to be the barrier of getting over Nebraska. You know, once you get them here, you get them from the airport to campus, I think you have a great shot at getting them. I think our percentages will be really high at commitments from kids that officially visit.
transfers in general, I mean, you kind of mentioned they like pick the wrong school, or like maybe they don't trust the process as much. How do you get them to trust that you're not just another, you know what I mean?
You know what you do? You point to all the experience and success that you have with them. It'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that's had more success and experience with transfers. So that's what you point to. I have this graphic that has a picture of every transfer I've gotten. All I do is send it to the kid and let that speak for itself.
How did that start? I mean, did Fred say, we got to do this with you? I mean, how did that really get going?
You know what? I feel like that question's been answered, and there's been like 20 different narratives on how it's really started. I don't know.
Well, shape your narrative. I mean, how did it start?
Yeah, I couldn't answer. I don't know if I can answer that either. All I know is when Fred took the job, I told him immediately we have to get Royce White. I don't care what his problems were in the past. Just trust me that I'm going to be able to get this kid to the court, and he's going to be unbelievably successul. Royce is family to me. Being able to be my first recruit and kind of spearhead what we're trying to do. I mean, he was the most important piece of what we did there, because that second season we put ourselves and Iowa State on the map. And, you can point to him, but all the other transfers too, Chris Babb and Chris Allen and Anthony Booker, all significant pieces in being our first transfer class. So what we always went with and what we'll always go with is we always had the highest median age in the Big 12. And I think that was why we were able to compete with the likes of Kansas and teams that are getting these so-called five-star McDonald's All-Americans. And I think that's a heck of a formula, because experience and age, not sure anything could beat that.
Hey, Matt, can you help us out with something? Can you pronounce your last name?
Sure. Abdelmassih. It's not as intimidating as it's okay. My wife butchers it.
I was just going to ask, I'm sure you...
I really feel bad for my son. That's for sure.
Is he the kid in class that when they're going down roll call, well, he's at the very beginning, he knows it's the name because they have to hesitate.
Yeah, absolutely. The only good thing is if as long as it's alphabetical order starting with A,
he knows to expect it right
in good shape.
How does it feel to be here in Lincoln, and what's the last few weeks been like for you?
Well, the last few weeks have been nothing but a whirlwind, and it's been nonstop. But overall, it's been amazing. What an unbelievable community. The people are phenomenal. The native Nebraskans have welcomed me and all of us with open arms. Life's gotten a lot easier now that Doc's here, because everyone just goes straight to him and talks to him. So it kind of gets us away from the spotlight for a minute. But I'm thrilled to be here in this community and at this university. It's special with the people that are around it.
How quickly did it happen for you from Fred accepting the job and then getting a hold of you?
Fred never asked me if I was coming with him. I think it was just assumed. He never even offered me the job. Are
you on payroll?
I am. When he signed his deal, I actually signed mine, but he never said, "Hey, are you coming with?" Or there was just an assumption. "Hey, I'm taking this job." Cool, congratulations. So you coming to Chicago tomorrow? Yeah, sure, I'll be there. That was Monday, and Tuesday I hopped on the plane with him and came to Nebraska. But I never got an offer from Fred. Hey, come with me to Nebraska. Listen, we stayed in touch over the last 4 years, of course, when we separated ways. When I went to St. John's and he went to the Bulls, he's a close friend of mine. Always kept tabs on each other every time he came into New York, which was a lot, playing the Nets and Knicks. We always met up for dinner. I always knew that there was a chance he could go back to college. Clearly, for me, being home at my alma mater is really difficult to leave. Fred, though, is family. It's hard to turn down getting an opportunity to work with family and also getting an opportunity for your wife to get back home.
So what do you bring to the table, Matt? What's your role, and what does Fred expect out of you on a day-to-day basis?
What my role will be, certainly I would assume I got to try and get some players. That's first and foremost. Listen, the one thing that I'm always going to do for Fred is I'm going to have his back. I think that's important in this business, is having people on your staff that have your back, that are loyal to you. So to a fault, I'm always going to have his back. That's first and foremost. And second, I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability, which is sell the heck out of this program and Fred and hopefully get the talent in here to get this place rolling like we know we can.
How's that been so far over the past couple of weeks? Because there's a lot of open scholarships with the
Yeah.
guys that graduated.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got your work cut out for you.
Yeah,
Right off the start.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been really productive. I feel really confident and good at where we're at on today's day with the interest that we have. I mean, the commitments we have from kids taking visits coming up are all impact players. And if we do our job on visits and we get kids to come here, I think we're going to have a team next year that we feel good about.
Where are you finding the interest? Like when you hit the transfer market, do you have to tell them much about Nebraska? I know that Fred's a known name, but what about this university?
You know what? The biggest thing with transfers is you're selling us and who we are. For myself, I've been fortunate enough to establish a reputation, sometimes bad, but with transfers. So that part is pretty easy. It's up to you once you get in the door. You have to make the most of it, and that's where selling Fred and his experience and all his accolades as being a vet in the NBA is huge. Because you need to sell that, and then you get them here, and then it's all about Nebraska. You get over that barrier and you get them on campus, I think you have a great shot to be successful.
Were you in with the conversation with Gervais and
Yeah.
convincing him that this is where he wanted to be
Yeah.
despite the coaching change?
Awesome. It speaks volume to who he is and his family is as people, allowing us the opportunity to keep his commitment. What a great kid. I know he's going to be a heck of a representative for the program and university. Clearly he's very talented. All the credit really goes towards Coach Miles and their staff because they did the hard work, which was to get him to come to Nebraska. So all the credit to them, and fortunate enough that he wanted to remain with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
How many transfers can play next year? I'm trying to figure out what kind of roster you guys can be having next year.
Well, you get
come in and play?
You get 13 scholarships, so you could have 13 transfers.
Can they play next year?
No, we'll end up taking, we'll go into next season probably with 10 players that are able to play and maybe take 2 or 3 sit-out kids.
Okay.
Where things are at today, we feel really good about the sit-out pool where in year 2, in our second year, they can make a huge impact. When you take a sit-out transfer, you have to feel like that sit-out year, they're really going to maximize that time and make a huge impact. And that's one thing we feel really good about the crop that we're involved with.
I guess there are transfers now who can get a waiver from the NCAA, it's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it is. You can't really necessarily sit here and count on the waivers. Of course, we will submit them and do our best to get them awarded. But, yeah, the grad transfer pool, of course, that's going to be a big part of what we do because we have to fill some gaps. Feel really good about where we're at with that. But, yeah, recruiting's so fluid. Transfers are even more fluid, and there's like 100 names going into the portal every day. I get all the alerts on my phone, and it's like buzzes at all times during the hour, so it's crazy. You look at them, and but you still lock in on who you can get.
Recruiting, and it's like a whole different thing.
Yeah, luckily I've been fortunate enough to have the experience dealing with transfers and recruiting transfers. It's a unique experience because you have such a short window to pique their interest. It's really only a few days, and then you try and lock up a visit, and the whole thing could be done in 10 days. So it's very quick, which is awesome because you know where you stand. It's not like a high school kid where it could string you along for 3 years, and all of a sudden you get left at the altar.
Did you stress what happened at Iowa State to some of these guys? This is what we did there? Or?
Yeah, for me, not only that, my 4 years at St. John's, we took so many transfers. I think we were right behind Nevada for the most in the entire country. So, certainly I point to all that experience because clearly at St. John's, our foundation was built off of that.
How's your time at St. John's help you to recruit the East Coast to come to Nebraska?
Yeah, I've never been. The fortunate enough thing for me is some recruiters have a specific area. I feel like I have the entire world. I've recruited international kids. I've recruited East Coast, South, Midwest, West Coast. So I don't have a specific area, which is why, luckily, once a year I can use all my Sky Miles and me and my wife can go on vacation.
Where's the most random place you've been? And you're like,
Bratislava, Slovakia. Weird.
Not going back.
You know what? I actually enjoyed it. You fly into Vienna, and Vienna was awesome. So I would go back. Sometime when I go to Vienna, I'll stop by Bratislava just for good times.
What's an in-home visit in Slovakia?
so what does that gym look like?
It was 115 degrees in the gym. It was disgusting. I have no idea how the players performed under those conditions because I know I didn't want to sit there and watch it, let alone. And you know what? In Europe, it's not easy to find bottled water. So that in itself sucked. So you're hydrating off of Coke Light, which is their version of like Diet Coke. So yeah, that's a random place. But I've been in a lot of random places. What a great! I'm not complaining. It's awesome to be able to travel the world.
This is a bit of a change of gears. I apologize.
No problem.
Asked this question.
Yeah, no problem.
You and Coach Holberg first met in the Minnesota Timberwolves front office. What was that kind of connection like when you made with? What was it that kind of drew you to him, so to speak?
First conversation we had was on the phone, and he asked me how tall I was, and I said, I'm not going to lie to you because hopefully we meet. And I said, I'm like 5'0", and he's like, okay, so are you able to rebound? I'm like, yeah, of course I can rebound. I said I can't do anything past that because I'll probably get killed. So I knew right there, clearly he's a cool guy. And the thing that our relationship's always been built off of is, our friendship is all about loyalty. And, I'm fortunate enough that he took a chance on me on plenty of different stops. And I know he's proud of the fact that I've proved that he made the right call. It's easy to work for someone and sell something when you believe in them wholeheartedly.
There's been a lot of rumblings lately that they might change the requirements for graduate transfers.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Grad transfers.
Like if they make it harder for the players to do that, academic requirements.
I'd be shocked if they do, just because I feel like a lot of fallout would come with that. In a very sensitive time with players' rights, it'd be shocking to see that they start taking away the players' rights, that if you have a year of eligibility that you can get penalized by using that year somewhere else. I do think the inevitable is there's going to have to be major overhaul with the transfer rules. Whenever they come, we'll deal with them, and I'm sure we'll be just fine. As long as they don't get rid of them completely, because then I'll have to find a different line of work.
About 5 more minutes, guys.
Hey, Bobby was talking from his time at Iowa State. He said he handled all the scouts. Did the same thing for the Windy City Bulls. What's it kind of like having him, or I guess how key is he going to be for the staff and kind of whatever he can do?
Whenever you have as successful as a head coach as him, not only from a game planning but recruiting and just the knowledge he brings is vital. When Fred told me, what I thought, it's an absolute no-brainer. One, because we know how unbelievable of a person he is, how well he fits in. One thing about our office is everyone's just giving each other, nonstop. We keep everything as lighthearted as possible because you can get caught up and beaten up in this business so easy. The pressure can get to you, and having guys like Doc and Bobby around are awesome. Certainly, laughing is a premium in the office.
We haven't asked you about Armand yet. Obviously, you guys are going to get
Yeah.
the band back together from Iowa State, and then there's Armand.
Yeah.
How has he fit in with you guys, and what made him a candidate to be retained?
Yeah, clearly you want some type of familiarity on the staff, and he was as key to keeping Gervais as anybody or anything, and I completely understand why. Clearly a guy that's been unbelievably successful in his own right as a player and as a coach, but being able to keep someone that knows the university, knows the current players was huge. Let alone that, his recruiting ties are significant in itself. He's had success recruiting at a really high level. Also extremely likable guy, big family man, has a lot of kids. That's huge for Fred, being, he's a huge family guy. So having those people around on your staff is what he likes to have, and just a huge part of what we're trying to do here will be Armand.
Given the fact that he's known as a recruiter in his own right, how much planning do you guys have to do with how offers are given out, just kind of how the whole recruiting plan is put together?
Clearly that's where communication comes in. You have to communicate at a pretty high level. The good thing is you can feed off of each other. He might know somebody involved in a specific kid I'm recruiting, or vice versa. So that's huge. But certainly we have to rely on him. He has the Big Ten experience to where he knows the type of teams and the type of players that this league possesses. So that will allow us to help us build what we want to try to at Nebraska.
Building on that Big Ten experience, how much of his previous experience with a staff like Chris Collins and some of those other former NBA players at Northwestern, did that weigh into how he fits?
Yeah, I think as a whole, anytime someone has the experience he does in college basketball is a bonus. Being able to work at multiple different levels allows the ability to have knowledge from all those experiences. That experience is everything in this business, because it allows you to mold exactly what you want to do at your given situation. Is this mine?
Yes.
Thanks.
Speaking of hydrating,
Yeah.
45 days. You went without drinking water?
Me?
Oh, God.
Oh, Doc? Yeah. It's probably longer. Because one day at Iowa State, he said he was feeling not feeling good. So Fred says to him, "Well, pal, you probably should drink some water." It's like, "Pal, I am. I got ice cubes in my Diet Mountain Dew."
Hey, I get sorry if somebody's already asked you this. How hard is it to recruit right now with everything that's going on with Adidas and Nike, and does that make it more difficult? Does it impact anything?
It doesn't impact anything, and the reason why is because, I think as we've seen, it's such a select group of schools or people involved. I think everyone jumped the gun thinking it had these crazy legs to it. But yeah, it really hasn't changed the landscape. I'm not no rocket scientist, but I'm sure college basketball has been going on for a long time, and no one invented this.
Right. Right. I just always wonder if, not that if you would run into a kid and you'd be being recruited by another school, and you're like, all right, well, has it ever come across where you've been recruiting a kid and he's asks for something, and you're like, well, we don't do that. Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
I think each individual recruitment always poses its difficulties, and certainly you can't be naive to the fact that all that stuff goes on, and you have to make the decision on things that you do or don't do, and that's where the transfers are in play. You can cut through all of it because it's such a short time. They don't care about anything but what's the opportunity, how are you going to get me better, and am I going to reach my goals? And when you prove that you can do all three, like we have, then you put yourself in a position and you kind of circumvent all the other stuff. That's allowed me to survive. Recruiting high school kids at the level that we can get out of the transfer pool, hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
What was your final pitch to Royce White that got him?
Just the trust that we developed.
Yeah.
I could be doing this for another 40 years, which I hope I'm not, and nobody that I'm ever closer with.
Really?
Because I had to work so hard at building his trust, because that's the only way it was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
I literally held his hand on flights.
Really?
And he could pick me up and throw me 500 feet, I feel like. But that's, I still talk to him probably too much. But, yeah, that's my boy. Clearly I owe a lot to him. And, that the thing about college basketball that always gets lost is we always focus on their time here, but no one ever really talks about when they move on from whatever university is. And I pride myself on keeping in touch with all my guys. And, I think that's the family that I try and preach to them during the recruiting process, and he's a specific example. Like he's gone through his trials and errors, ups and downs, and no matter what, I'll be in that guy's corner, defending him, doing whatever I can to help him.
You recruited 1 million guys for Fred. What's like 1 or 2 things that every guy either needs or has to have? Sorry if you've been asked. What the kids I've recruited, the thing that they needed was opportunity, because they weren't coming to Iowa State in what they thought was not even in the United States. They had no idea where Iowa was for not being able to be put on a platform to reach their goals and make the NBA. I mean, one thing that is absolutely amazing is 9 players that played in the NBA from Iowa State. That's remarkable. Not only that, all the players that are playing at the highest level overseas. So I feel like that's one area we could check the box, is that we've given them the opportunity. That's the biggest sell. They want an opportunity to play. They don't want to sit on the bench. And, we've certainly maximized that part.
As you go out and recruit for Nebraska, are those examples you're bringing up to the guys you're trying to get to come to Nebraska, or what avenue are you taking with that?
Well, we certainly have a lot of opportunity at Nebraska right now, so that's an easy thing to sell. You know, the one thing that you have to do, you have to be fully transparent when you talk to all these kids, and because they appreciate that. You know, I think everybody in life appreciates someone that's up front. You're certainly going to get that from me and our staff. So being able to tell them, we're not wasting your time, like, this is what it is, this is the piece that we're looking for, and you're it, is something that we can do right now. And in the future, when it comes to one thing that I haven't taken a lot of grad transfers. A lot of people think I have. I haven't. I've taken maybe the best ones ever, but not a lot in terms of quantity. So to fall back on that and the experiences we've had, it's easy to point to, like DeAndre Kane's success, because he's arguably the best grad transfer in the history of college basketball. So that part right there, to fall back on that, to show them what that opportunity looked like for him and what it's going to look like for them here, there's direct correlations that you can draw from that.
Is there any reason why you haven't gone after a lot of grad transfers?
Because
just the way it's coming out?
No, you know why? Grad transfers, if they're not one of your best players, it's hard to take them.
Like if they're not going to be the guy.
Yes. They got one. It could hurt your locker room, and you need to avoid that. It's not certain. You're putting a Band-Aid on whatever it is in your roster when you take them, because clearly they're here for 1 year. You know, in a rarity, they could be here for 2 years. But, just a little stopgap. Yeah. And, hopefully we'll have a few on this year's team.
Anything else from Matt?
Thanks, man.
Yeah, definitely, guys.